Hey guys, welcome to another Complete Developer Raw with your host, Will and BJ. Hey guys, so before we get started, rest in peace Stan Lee. Man, that hit me rough this week.
Yeah, I mean, he did live a full life, you know.
Very true.
And I think you can judge the quality of somebody's work by what they say about what everybody says about them after they go, and I think from that metric, he did pretty darn well.
Yeah, he really did. But yeah, that's harsh. I know when his health started going down, I heard that he had recorded 20-something cameos for like the next, I don't know how many Marvel movies.
So he's gonna keep showing up.
Yeah. But I cannot wait. I don't know if they'll have it in which. Do you know which comes out next? Is it Captain Marvel or Avengers 4?
You know, here's the thing. I've only seen up to Avengers 2 so far.
Oh, okay.
I'm way behind on all the things right now.
So I don't know which one's coming out next. I'm looking forward to seeing what they put together for him.
Yeah.
Just because he was really awesome, and I don't know. I just liked his attitude towards things, and I don't know. He created a lot of my favorite characters, so that's really awesome. Moving on to more current topics, I guess. I don't know how to bridge from that, guys. I'm sorry. That's a rough one. Anyways, so we are in kind of our last legs of recording in the same room for a while. So we're down to just a small bottle. There we go, of Tin Cup is what we're drinking. This is an American whiskey. It's really interesting. It's a blend of two different whiskeys, one from Indiana and one from Colorado, and cut with Rocky Mountain water. So I don't know. It's really good, smooth, pretty decent whiskey. So let's see. On to what's going on in my life. So, like I said, we're down to our last few in-person recordings because I'm getting ready to move, been packing and getting stuff ready for that. Today I've been writing technical docs all day long. So that's been a lot of fun. But I did find something really interesting. I got over here really fast. Like, there was no traffic, so I stopped at the gas station just to waste a little bit of time, so I didn't show up 30 minutes early. And they had something that I haven't seen in a very long time, and that is Crystal Pepsi. I did not know they were even making this anymore. So, I'm looking for an expiration date to make sure it's not from way back when they had it out.
The 90s?
Yeah.
Was it the 90s or was that the 80s? New Coke was 86.
Yeah.
I vaguely remember that.
So I think it was late 80s, early 90s ish.
Yeah,
we can look it up.
I want to say,
but so this expires November 26th, 18. So it may be from back then. We gotta get rid of it. All right, so here we go. I am opening this live.
Let's hope it doesn't fizz out. Isn't it basically Sprite? I'm trying to remember what that tastes like.
It's supposed to taste just like Pepsi. So you smell it.
Smells like Pepsi.
Yeah, it smells like Pepsi. Here it goes. Tastes like syrupy Pepsi.
Okay.
Not bad, but a little low on the carbonation, a little heavy on the sweet syrup. So that's what's going on with me. Y'all just watched me open and drink a Crystal Pepsi live. I don't know. It's the first time I've drank one in how many years? I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyways, I bought it because it was kind of a novelty. And what's going on with you?
Let's see. I finished all of the edits on my book. I'm trying to get those into digital format. I did the editing by hand. Reading stuff in there and marking it up on paper. And reading out loud.
Yeah.
And checking the flow of stuff. So I'm trying to get that moved over. And hopefully make a copy for you to look over. And then I've got to do a bunch of marketing crap that I'm not completely aware of what exactly it entails to make the book available. So that's going right now. I've also been absolutely slammed at work. There's just a lot going on. Tail end of the year, we've got multiple projects. So I have been in SQL Server purgatory since, I guess, noon yesterday, probably. Like, I had a meeting and there's like, okay, we got like 4 things we need you to write, right? Like, it's action items. I'm like, okay, I'll knock those out by the time I leave. And I did.
Yeah.
But while I was in there, I found 16 or 17 other things that I needed to do. So yeah, I might be done by the end of the day tomorrow if I don't find any more.
That's funny.
And then I get to deal with like figuring out audit trail stuff.
Yeah.
Which is...
That's fun.
Yeah.
That's funny because a similar thing happened to me earlier this week where I went in to fix one thing and I noticed like 2 or 3 others. And so I was like, you know what? It's not going to take much to fix them. So I got on a roll and fixed like 4 or 5 things. And then I went to go like say, hey, by the way, I fixed these and I noticed in the backlog that we had stories for each of them. So like I completed like 4 or 5 stories.
Totally screwed up the metrics of your whole team.
They were all like they were like stories that we hadn't refined yet. It was just, oh hey, one of them was like in the CSV export we want to remove the timestamp from dates. And it's like,
a little piddly stuff, but yeah, you got to go find it still. I mean, it counts.
Mm-hmm. And so when I was in there, I was working on the CSV stuff, and I noticed that. I'm like, well, that doesn't make sense. Let me just fix that real quick. And so like, there's a handful of things that were just thrown in there. I'm like, well, we don't need to refine these stories because I kind of already did them.
Yeah, some of these that I found are stored procedures that took 2 or 3 hours to write each. And I mean, dude, I had Megadeth cranked up. I mean, I was just going today. It was like back in college. And I still didn't get it all done.
No.
I mean, I had to send my boss an email and go, okay, here's what I did today, and here's why those 4 items from yesterday became like 16 other ones. Yeah, it was a little rough. Stuff happens. So,
podcast-wise, we have been researching kind of our options for recording. Like I said, we're not going to be... Oh, by the way, guys, we are not going to be on live next week. It is Thanksgiving here in the United States, and Will and I will both be with our families.
Possibly slightly inebriated, possibly worse.
Yeah, both. Yeah. So, we will not be... inebriated, that's no different than normal Thursday night. But
we're not inebriated.
We're not yet.
Enhanced.
But we won't be recording, so we won't be doing a live. We're actually recording 2 episodes tonight, and then we're going to record, I think, 3 episodes week after next.
Yeah.
So that's probably that's a good last time recording here for a while.
Yeah, at least they'll be easy ones. Yeah. Well, 2 of them will be. The other one is...
Which depends on who gets theirs done first.
Yeah.
We're both writing episodes right now, so whoever gets it done first gets it in by the end of the year.
Yeah.
Well, we gamify it, so it's a lot of fun. Anyways, we've been researching remote options for both recording and doing the live. I know that a lot of streamers and stuff, like teams, they get on and do things on Twitch and stuff, so there's got to be not too complicated ways. The issue is Will and I are both developers, and we both like doing things the difficult way to figure it out. And so I'm trying to avoid that tendency in both of us.
Just pay for something.
Yeah. Yeah. Pretty much. So we're working on that. We're going to figure it out and get that going. I have also, is what I was trying to say. I've also been looking into a dedicated recording box, and I noticed that Apple has released a new version of their Mac Mini. It's a bit more expensive than the old one, but it's like they all have SSDs because the ones without SSDs sucked, and everybody that got them ended up replacing the hard drives with SSDs. And they also have better cooling options. I think they've got the cheapest one is like a 6-core. So, and they got up to 12-core. processors. Pretty decent. I mean, they're hardcore, but they're also like $800.
It's not too bad.
No, it's not terrible, not for a Mac at least.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at that. I may be getting one of those for my place, and just using that as my recording and editing box. So that's cool.
Nice.
That, and we're just planning for the end of the year. So let's go ahead and get on into some listener questions.
Does the OS you use for programming really matter from a career point of view?
Before you get into this, after I put this together, I thought, oh, you know what? I cut out, because this was a really long question, I cut out the part where they were talking about Windows versus Linux.
Yeah.
They didn't mention Mac OS, but so.
Yeah, I don't know. I would say this varies a lot, right? Like if you can still program on like VAX, that's going to affect your career options a lot. Like there's places that will hire you right now. Mm-hmm. So there's that angle. There's also the angle of, okay, if you're doing like, typical web development and stuff, I don't know that it's going to matter that much because they're trying to make that platform agnostic. On the other hand, if you're doing low-level stuff and you're interacting with a Windows API, or you're screwing around with a Linux kernel, yes, your OS is going to matter. So it's kind of hard to say. It really, I would say that it matters if you make it matter, and doesn't if you don't.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that. You have a PC at home, and I put Linux on the crap top, so it actually works pretty well. And then
for that machine, yes.
Yes, yeah. Well, I mean, one of the main reasons it had trouble was because it only had 4 gigabytes of RAM, and Windows used, 3.98 gigabytes of RAM. So, yeah. So I have a lightweight Ubuntu on there, and it works perfectly fine. So for that, and then I have Windows on the laptop we're using now, and then I use Mac at work running a Windows VM for my .NET Standard stuff that I have to write. So I'm kind of using a little bit of everything.
Yeah, and I would say that's good too. Is like it's one thing if you go, okay, I primarily work on Windows, but I can handle Linux. Mm-hmm. I mean, because crap, I've got a NAS here that I had to get in. I had to SSH into it and use Vim and change a bunch of crap so that I could get a Docker container to act right. Yeah, if you can do that, then you're probably okay switching platforms for the most part.
You know what's funny?
But what kills me is I know Windows developers that can't do anything on Linux.
Yeah.
Like I know one guy and of course the other thing is too, the same dude 2-finger types. And so you get him on the console and man, it's really rough. Like even doing stuff on the Windows console, you basically just take his keyboard away from him and you do it for him because you don't want to sit there and watch that business. So you want to be capable enough that you can get something done.
Mm-hmm. How does he get stuff done when you're not sitting there beside him, 2-finger typing?
We'll talk about that later. It's not anybody at my present work. It's a guy that I worked with years ago.
Yeah, just like I've seen people who can type really fast 2-finger.
Yeah, if you saw this guy type, you would not include him in that set.
Fair enough.
So
when I first started learning programming, I couldn't type. I was in high school. I actually ended up taking a typing class while I was in high school to get better at programming.
Yeah, it'll force you to. Mm-hmm. It'll also really, like you do any of the C-based languages, it really screws up your typing. Like I honestly think if my typing teacher from high school saw the way I type now, she would not be happy.
Yeah.
Because, like if this hand goes up, this one will go under. You're so used to doing stuff with weird, key combinations, you just over it.
You want to talk about weird key combinations? Try going from using solely PC Windows with occasional Linux stuff to a Mac with a Windows VM.
Oh yeah.
And so I'm like, control this. I was like, oh no, wait, it's command on the, and it's okay when I'm on the laptop, it's keyboard itself, but when I'm on my external keyboard, where the command button is the Windows button that I've been using differently and in a different position. It throws me off.
And I'm trying to think what the context was where I've had to like use like the back tick a lot. You know, and some of those
Markdown?
Yeah, Markdown's one of those. There's something else, something programmatic though, and I can't remember. Anyway, but I mean, when you start doing that, yeah, it gets ugly quick.
Yeah,
but we went way off the rails there.
But on this, and this is sort of what we're getting at, is it really for most things doesn't matter unless you are doing something specific in that operating system. You know, when I was interviewing before I got my job, one of the places I interviewed at, all of their developers do what I'm doing now. They did .NET in a Windows VM on a Mac because the hardware was better.
Yeah.
It was easier to get better hardware that way. And I remember when they interviewed me, when they told me that, I apparently grimaced or something because, you know...
Yeah.
There were jokes made, and the one person in there who was like refused to go Mac was their lead API developer, and you know he apparently liked me because of that. But I was just like, oh, why would I want to do that? And now that I am doing that, I'm like, this is what I want to do because it's pretty awesome. But you know,
yeah,
there are a few frustrating things you have to get through. So the next question, when using Git, do you prefer rebasing or merging for your day-to-day tasks?
I'm not using Git. I'm doing Subversion at the moment, and I would rather be using Git with either of those options actually right now. Let's see. I think mostly what I've done is merging, just because I've had you set up the merge tool and you just kind of go. But a lot of that's also based around like I have old documentation that like I carry around with me everywhere, and so when I go, oh, how do I do this? I go find it, and there it is. That's how I did it in 2008, and by golly,
there is that.
Yeah.
So in my opinion, it kind of depends on how many people are in the code base.
Yeah.
Because when it was, we used to have separate repos for our API and our front end and our database, and like everything had its own separate repository. And when I was the only API developer in there, I would create a feature branch, work on that, and then just rebase to it.
Right.
And it would just that way I'd keep that same flow.
Yeah. Get your hand off the screen.
Yeah. Yes. You guys should see me when we're recording because
he looks like he's a conductor.
I really do.
Or Italian.
It's coming from a family of preachers.
But yeah, like the branching purgatory that you go through in anything is awful. Like, I mean, the other day I did like 2 days worth of work on the wrong branch, and my junior dev is like, I'll fix it. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there going, man, I'm like one of those old, incompetent old guys. Like, how did this happen? And the thing is, I was switching branches so much, I thought I had switched, and I hadn't.
I've done that.
And I mean, part of the problem too is that with Subversion and all that, you switch branch and you pull all the stuff down, and I've got ReSharper. We've got a huge project. I mean, I can open a solution and it's a good 15 minutes before I can do anything. And so you think, okay, I'm pretty sure I remember twiddling my thumbs for 15 minutes earlier. So I thought I made the switch and I hadn't.
Yeah.
And it didn't actually damage anything. It was just like, what he ended up actually doing was going, okay, which files did you change? Send those to me in an email, and I'll just copy them over.
That's pretty much what I did when I made that similar kind of mistake. It's just I copied those files out and then went back. The thing with merging is you can do that easier. You got a little bit more safety in there, and you can kind of see where everyone has touched it. Whereas with the rebasing, it's you're resetting.
Yeah, you're just nuking and paving. Now I've also worked with other teams that were remote. There was one company I worked for where the team in India would push to QA and then push down to dev. So they were doing stuff,
I've heard of that.
and then they would push down on us, and they were just like, "Oh, just we don't need these changes." And so, like, a week worth of your stuff is gone, and you're getting chewed out because you didn't do anything for the week. And so I finally started like keeping copies, and then overwriting theirs and pushing mine over. Because so I really feel like that source control and branching and merging is still an area that we really don't do that well. As an industry,
it really seems like the more people or teams you have in the same code base, the more complicated it gets.
Yeah, it's like a conversation with multiple people. Like you have 2 people, it's an intimate dinner, and if you got 10 people, it's Real Housewives.
Yeah, that's about right. That's about right. All right, so moving on to the third and final question.
Why do high-performing developers fail to get promoted? Well, first of all, they fail to advocate for themselves because they think that their high performance is self-evident. It isn't. Another thing that they fail to do is they fail to set things up in such a way that they can be replaced so that they can be promoted. If your junior devs are not doing more and more difficult stuff where they can kind of come up in ranks, then you're not going up either. The other thing that they don't do is they don't play politics well. I don't know how many senior devs I know that will sit there and they'll do stuff like they'll put refactoring as a line item on something they did. Oh, it took me 6 hours to refactor this. And instead of going, hey, I fixed this thing, it took me 10 hours, they break it down into 4 hours of doing the thing and 6 hours of refactoring. Yes, that may be true, but if the refactoring was necessary and you did it, you don't tell anybody. You're a professional. Like, you fixed the thing. Mm-hmm. So, they won't do that. They won't play politics. So that they think that, tech used to be a bit more of a meritocracy.
Yeah.
And that unfortunately is starting to change. But what happens is when you cap out in a meritocracy and then you go into a political arena, you're basically going from little league to major league. And so you're going in and you're playing a game that you're not even familiar with. Mm-hmm. And they won't, and then they refuse to play. And so they don't get promoted. So that's another thing that high performing developers do that keeps them from being promoted.
They also tend to get grumpy and
I can't imagine why we get grumpy. Yeah. Well, the
I
other
just
thing
knew you were going to rant for a while on that one, so that's why I picked this question. I was like, Will is going to go off on this.
Yeah.
And
so there's a lot of that. And the other thing is that a lot of high performing developers, what they end up actually doing is you find out that they're not really working any more than anybody else is. They've just automated crap. They've got shortcuts and stuff that they don't tell anybody about. Mm-hmm. And I'll give an example. I had a job where they wanted me to check this system at 10 o'clock every night to make sure that a batch process had completed successfully. Well, yeah, okay. But they didn't specify how I was to check it. So initially I was checking it, I was, remote in, do some SQL code, And then after a while I was like, you know what? I'll just be able to get to my email and I'll just write a little thing that goes and finds this information and tells me if it blew up or not. And so 10:05, I'm laying in bed and I look at my phone and boop. Okay, it went through. We're good. And you'll see that same kind of pattern. So that's another thing they do too. So what happens is they're like, oh, well, I don't really want to push for something that's going to be harder where all the work I've put in doesn't go with me.
Yeah.
The other thing I'll see them do is you'll see senior developers that, they worked on some project years ago and they're still supporting it. So that puts a cap on how high you can climb. It's lift to mass ratio at that point. And at some point you get high up enough where you can't go any higher because you're dragging everything else with you.
Yep. I've seen that too.
Yeah.
All right, guys. So let's hop over here and see. We've got a couple people watching on Facebook, but no comments. Yeah. Didn't think anybody on Twitter was watching us.
Yeah.
So, all right, y'all. If you haven't already checked it out, the episode that came out today was Distributed Computing Fallacies. So you want to build a distributed system. this is not as simple as you'd think. A lot of the assumptions that you might make in a simple program are rather dangerous here. Not only are there issues like network failures, but there are a lot of things you've counted on that simply don't work the same in a distributed system. While the bad assumptions that we make when building distributed applications will not cause problems early on, they can definitely create some unpleasant surprises as your code ages. It's better to avoid them from the start. The assumptions that you don't know you are making are the ones that hurt the most. In the episode, we start off talking about the differences between distributed and non-distributed computing, and then discuss different fallacies to avoid when building a distributed system.
And the upcoming episode next week is surviving multiple projects. So this will come out on Turkey Day.
Yeah.
When you start out as a junior developer, you're typically focused on a single project, learning the system and the tools at your workplace. You're also kind of typically crammed into a corner of that project so that you can't damage the whole thing. That's kind of ideal for training junior devs. Not everybody does that, unfortunately. But as you get further along in your career, you begin to take on more responsibilities, and eventually you'll start working on multiple projects. And it can be really difficult to handle the expectations of multiple projects, especially if the people in charge of those projects are different people from different departments. There's different chains of command, different deadlines, all this stuff comes up. So the projects may seem similar in objective, but with everything being different, different teams and all that kind of stuff, it's really easy to end up in a situation where you are having to juggle in a bad way. You have to manage things as separate projects, but you still have to keep yourself organized and productive, and the context switching really, really eats you alive. It's really hard to switch between different goals and even different versions of the software you're using on different projects. So for instance, you may have a utility library you added stuff to, and it's available on one, and you're starting to use, you're trying to do something on the other one that doesn't have that. It's got an old version, and you estimated based on this stuff being available, and now it's not. So we discussed 9 different tactics to use when working on multiple projects at the same time to try to overcome these types of problems.
So guys, we're going to hop off here. We've got a couple episodes to record tonight. Again, we will not be doing a live show next week. It will be Thanksgiving.
Yeah, you don't want a live show next week.
No, not. I mean, Will's going to be with his family. I'm going to be with mine. It would be kind of interesting to put them all together in one room.
That would be humorous.
Yeah, I think our sisters would get along.
Yeah, I'm surprised they don't know each other, actually.
Yeah, that's very true.
I don't know.
I think they're just far enough apart.
Maybe.
Yeah. So anyways, we will catch you guys in a couple of weeks, and that'll be our last time recording here in person, and then we will we'll start doing remote stuff after that, and I will do my best to learn between now and then and get it set up so that we can still do lives.
And hopefully he can still do it that way and doesn't have to drive all the way up here.
Yeah, I mean, it's only about an hour or so.
One way.
Well, yeah, one way. Well, I mean, I was driving that much when we first started.
Yeah, but you weren't employed then.
It's true.
Whole another can of worms.
All right, guys, we will talk to y'all later.